Line where we are joined by Dan Beaver after
Racetracks. I would think Dover might be a little more predictable than some, Dan, but you're the expert. You tell us.
Well, Dover's a rhythm track, and I think that plays into a lot of drivers' favor. Guys with a lot of experience. It also makes it a bit of a driver's track, so you get some good dark horses there. They're not completely reliant on horsepower only, so it's a nice little mix. The one issue with Dover is since Bristol started messing around with the configuration, the banking select, there's not a comparative any longer. They were both concrete high banks. You could kind of look at the two of them as a big sister and little sister track. And now I think Dover is by itself. You might look at Darlington a little bit since it's another rough surface track, but you're not going to get too much help where the other courses are concerned, and that leaves you looking at Dover only, which would be okay, except that NASCAR has been in their parity program for so long that it's hard to get long streaks. So you got a little bit of a challenge here for those reasons.
did you say parity or parody?
Yeah, that's the last couple of weeks been
After
parody.
Richmond 2 weeks ago, parity might work just as well, but no, I was going with the ITY one. So.
Well, let me ask you this, then, and then if we've lost the kind of comparable tracks, is what you're saying for the most part. But you do say it's kind of a driver's track. So how do you identify the guys that you think are drivers? I mean, what can you look at other tracks that you think are drivers' tracks and kind of come up with something? I don't want to take up your whole segment with this, but I think I know what you'll say, but go.
Well, no, I don't think you look at other drivers' tracks. You can't look at Martinsville. You can't look at these other places. But what you can do is look back for some of the drivers who've had some success on this track and other equipment or recently. So David Rudiman, who was finishing in the top 15 when he was with Michael Waltrip, might be kind of interesting to look at this week. If you're already comfortable with the other guys that you have on your roster, you could put him in the provisional slot and see if he practices well. Casey Mears finished 16th here in the spring. So he had an abysmal year last year. And that's what I'll look for on tracks like this. Drivers who just have a knack for this course, and also they're not going to be shackled with lack of horsepower. So that's what I mean by that there or here.
And I think when we talked about going into the chase 3 weeks ago, the last time we were together, I think you did say that you don't necessarily look just at chase drivers for your A and B cars, or do I have that backwards? I mean, it's been 3 weeks and I'm old. I forget stuff.
No, I think the chasers in every race except for Talladega, they tend to dominate the top 5, top 10, and they'll continue to. But you've also got then those drivers who sneak up in there from time to time, and some tracks are better than others. As we get deeper in the chase, the chase contenders stranglehold lessens just a little bit. But the last 2 weeks in Chicagoland and New Hampshire, they've got almost perfect records there. And at Dover, they've got a really great record, and as we go forward, it gets to be a little less.
All right, so looking at specific picks for and specific drivers beyond what you've already mentioned, what's your Yahoo team going to look like at Dover this week?
I think you're going to play it safe, pretty safe in Group A. If you've got him at Kenseth, you might as well put him on there. I doubt he'll win 3 races in a row, but I think he'll probably get another top 5. Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, I think are the two that I've got ranked right at the top right now. And part of that is because Kenseth had 2 bad races in a row. I think he had some crash damage in one race and an engine failure in one race. So Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon both have great records. Brad Keselowski also has consecutive top 5s last fall and this spring. So those are the 4 drivers that you can look at the closest. I'm probably going with Jimmy Johnson. He's tired of finishing behind Matt Kenseth, and I think that'll be the extra impetus that he needs. Plus, he was about to win his 8th race this spring before he got penalized by NASCAR for jumping the restart.
Oh, that's right.
Rules are different now.
That's right. That's where this was. I'd forgotten that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was here, and it was Montoya that he jumped. So.
Yeah.
Down in B, I think you've got a lot more choices down in Group B. I've got Kyle Busch ranked first, but that doesn't mean that most players can use him by now. You've got to be almost exhausted of his allocation. Joey Logano's been pretty strong here in the last few races, and you probably haven't exhausted him, so I've got him ranked second, and that could be one of your top picks. Earnhardt, I think, is going to do well this weekend. He snapped back from his bad Chicagoland race. They're going to be relatively conservative, but a good top 5 or a good top 10 out of him this week is going to make him worthwhile. Carl Edwards, when he's got his A game, he's almost unbeatable here. So I think you put him on the provisional roster and you wait to see just how good he is in practice. And that's pretty much what my Group B roster would look like.
This track more important practice speeds than most other tracks? Not to get you off track, but...
Yeah, and I think last week in New Hampshire was too. Both of them are rhythm tracks for different reasons. You got to hit those precise marks. Most of the mile tracks are like that. Phoenix, New Hampshire, Dover, Darlington is a little bit more than a mile. You just have to hit very, very precise marks to get around here. And you don't get that without repetition. So look for the drivers to put in a lot of laps, and the guys that have the best 10-lap averages are the ones that you're going to put on your roster. Unfortunately, you're not going to know that till Saturday.
Right.
And where the Yahoo game is concerned, you got to lock those provisionals in. So I think it's a good week to read the preview and to see who's ranked high and who you want to take that risk on. Take 50% of each roster, make it safe. Put a Jimmy Johnson in Group A, and maybe you put a Kevin Harvick in and see how he does in practice. Take a couple of safe drivers in Group B, and then you can roll the dice on some of those other guys and see how they do in practice. And if they've got good 10-lap average speeds, go for it. That's a good time of the year to gamble. You just still have some time to recover if you screw up.
Okay, well, I think we covered the C drivers in the beginning of your segment, right? So it gets down to now, who's your pick? If you had to do a one-and-done type pick to win this race, who's your guy or gal? She's still running, right?
Say this. Pardon?
I say, who's your guy or gal? She's still running, right, I think.
She is still running. I don't know that Danica Patrick's necessarily a good fit this week, but I hate to do this. I really, really hate to do this because I hate jinxing this guy. But Jeff Gordon, I think this is his week to win. He hasn't won yet this year. He's smarting for last week's mistake in the pits, and he should be smarting from his inability to restart. If we get a good long run or a good medium-sized run at the end of the race, I think Jeff Gordon's your guy. If we have a restart, he finishes 15th.
Well, Steve's hoping for a restart because he is not a Jeff Gordon fan. All right, he is Dan Beaver, and he's back on Pit Row this week and hopefully for the rest of the chase. So.